Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon to Asia and Europe, Africa. Still good morning. Welcome to our today's online Entrepreneurs DNA Knowledge Transfer. My name is Marita Schulze. I'm the co-founder of WIForum, and everyone in the World Innovations Forum team is also excited to share our today's first knowledge transfer session with you. I have to say, first of all, also best wishes to everyone who has to be feels not well today, who is feeling like my colleague who should be instead of me, Alyssa should be your moderator during this webinar. She just informed me she's not feeling well, and we all send her best wishes. But before we start, allow me to share a few housekeeping. You don't need to do screenshots of the today's presentation. Happy to share with you all the presentation later today, also in the World Innovations Forum community. And we love to hear from you during the presentation. If you have any questions, please feel free to send it through the question panel here at the control panel in GoToWebinar. Axel will be answering questions all at the end. For sure, we also appreciate every feedback of you in the social. Just use the hashtag WIForum and the hashtag perhaps of your country, and we are happy to reshare and also to learn what you think, how did you enjoy our webinar. So without any further ado, I like to introduce Axel Schulze, founder and chair of the World Innovations Forum. Axel was a highly innovative entrepreneur himself. He changed the face of tech and distribution in the 80s, built a 5 billion tech distributor with an all-new business model in the 80s. In 1997, we were the very first company with a digital stock exchange. 2000, Axel and I, we created one of the software as a service-based businesses with a patented and very disruptive sales channel management software. From 2015 onward, we helped startups to develop disruptive businesses in a far more methodological way than anybody else. One of our business contacts, it was in New York, once said, Axel has the power to transform an ordinary team member into an Olympian. And I have to say, I feel the race and the daily challenges. At the World Innovations Forum, we envision a world where prosperity is possible in all nations by building self-propelled economies through entrepreneurship and innovation created from within the respective nations. So please welcome Axel. Axel, please take over.
All right. Thank you very much, Marita. Let me just turn on my camera real quick. Probably not. Oh, here's the button. Probably not. Oh, here's the button. Anyway, before I start, I want to say something real quick. A huge thank you to all of our ambassadors and helping hands, because this webinar was an interesting, I don't want to say a screw up, but we had a glitch in our internal communication and the way we communicate typically events and stuff like that to the outside. So we realized that, you know, the core of our organization, the ambassadors, didn't even get an invitation. So we did this last night, and as the end result, so we had about, I think, 8 or 9 registrations. And so we thought something is wrong, and then all of a sudden it occurred. And so I sent out a personal email to all of them individually, basically overnight. And here we are, over 100 people. So this is 2 things. One is perfect fit to what we're doing. We're talking about entrepreneurship, which means some of these trades we're discussing today are squarely fit into that situation, making something out of nothing. I mean, boom, it happened. And this is what happens in startups. I mean, we're now a little bit over 1 year old as a foundation, and it just happened. And so with that, again, a huge thank you and a huge thank you for all of you who are here, who basically came with, what was it, 2 hours notice, 4 hours notice. So we really appreciate that. And I have to apologize for this crash action in the last, well, 12 hours or so. And with that, I'd like to start the presentation and talk about Entrepreneurship DNA, which is sort of the first in our knowledge series, which we, by the way, will do every month now with different topics, of course. We record that, and so the whole session will be available in the recording. Okay. So then, welcome to Entrepreneurship DNA. The question about entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship has been all along, and I mean global. And here are just some feedbacks from our events that we did last year across Southeast Asia. And you see there's a lot of people, a lot of entrepreneurs. You see pictures of our accelerator team or the teams who joined the accelerator and all kinds of events. And this is actually important because this is our source of how we learn. Every time we meet new entrepreneurs, we augment our knowledge about what is a real entrepreneur and what is somebody who believes he is or she is, people who want to be entrepreneurs but are not sure, and then people who want to become entrepreneurs just because it's hip and hop, and yet others are not quite sure, but are, I mean, perfect examples for an amazing entrepreneur. And they're all here, and they're all around the world. And when we started to think about entrepreneurship, we started, where did it actually start? And it's a very interesting story. So the human race, so to speak, the humans in general, we started about 12,000 years ago with the understanding that when we seed and put seeds into the ground and one seed next to each other, and they bloom, then and we fertilize it and we put water to it, then we can actually grow more corn than the person who actually seeds it in the first place can eat the entire life, so to speak. And this was called the first agricultural revolution, which is actually the first quote unquote industrial revolution ever. And ever since, people thought about, what else could we do to make life better, safer, less complicated, and where we not starve hunger every year, I mean, by the thousands and so forth. And so entrepreneurship started way back when in Mesopotamian, entrepreneurship continued in Egypt when Ramses actually built the first harbor. And the harbor was not built to make business easier in the first place. It was actually to have a place where they can conduct and collect taxes. But it happened to be, despite the taxes, that everybody went there because this was the place where everybody else went there. And so this was the first marketplace. And so entrepreneurship is as old as it can get. Entrepreneurship has no geography specials. I mean, we all think about Silicon Valley today, and most of us, including we moved to Silicon Valley because we wanted to be there. But there was another place, very interesting, and that was Alexandria, where the big library was built. Alexandria was actually the first quote unquote Silicon Valley, the first place where people gathered all kinds of crazy ideas, all kinds of crazy people, documentation about things that probably never worked, but people started to invent. And whether it worked or not was actually not mattering. It was inspiring that we can think about things that don't exist, or more or less don't exist. So entrepreneurship is of basically no special place. And since we started 12,000 years ago with seeding, we came to this conclusion that we want to seed innovation in a different way that it's done today. We literally want to seed innovation, and we will talk about that in a moment, but today is actually the first day where we start that. We want to get knowledge into the ground of new entrepreneurs, and very much like we put seeds into the ground to grow new corn, we want to grow new innovative entrepreneurs. And this relationship has another interesting parallel. A friend of mine, he's actually a farmer, or he was a farmer, a typical American farms boy, and he moved on to sell tractors, used tractors, and then new tractors, and he built an entire empire actually. And what I learned from him, and he said, you know, when we talked about startups have sort of a chance, you know, 10% out of 100 will make it, and the other 90% will fail. But still, there's hundreds and thousands who will still try, and that's good. But he said, you know, it's funny. If we would have the same yield, so out of every 100 seeds, 10 will grow, we would all be gone because we would not be able to survive. So today it's actually the opposite. Out of about 100 seeds, between 89 and 99% actually survive because we're so good at mentoring and nurturing and fertilizing and watering these seeds. And so this was actually one driver for the World Innovations Forum, but it's predominantly the driver for seeding innovation. And today's first knowledge transfer is basically a global initiative. So global, at least for the Eastern Hemisphere. So it's everything about Africa, Southeast Asia, because we have not been starting yet in Latin America. So if we would do so, then we would have an evening session for them. But as you can see, we have activities in all the countries, knowledge transfer. We will have monthly meetups, and we'll talk about this at another day. We have this Innovation Capital Network. It's a network of investors. On April 8th, so this next week, no, actually it's this week, it's on Wednesday, we have our first demo day, and this is actually a digital demo day. So unlike what we had planned to do this demo day in Saigon, Vietnam, obviously we can't fly and we can't do that, so we make it digitally. Okay, first initial reaction was bummer. Ooh, it doesn't work like we planned it. But we are entrepreneurs, and here comes this one trait. Well, we're creative. We're seeing an opportunity actually even, and saying, okay, then we make it digital. But wow, if we make it digital, we invite a lot more investors because they don't have to fly there. And so we invited about 600 investors. We have about 100 signed up. That is about twice as much as the biggest demo that we ever did. So that's an interesting situation. And so we have the World Innovations Day, April 21, and so forth. So let me continue and go to the heart of the discussion today. So that is, the question is, what is the DNA of an entrepreneur? What makes an entrepreneur, and what is the difference between one and the other? What do they have in common? And I was asked that question so many times, and not only from entrepreneurs, but from investors, from co-working spaces, from incubators, I mean, from all kinds of trades coming and saying, okay, how do you select these guys? Now, as you probably know, we have about a 50% success rate on our accelerator. We do this now since 4 years, 8 batches, and this is the most successful accelerator program. So people ask me, and I thought initially, yeah, maybe it's because I have a lot of experience, a lot of stories, and I can share this, but others do that too. But I think the difference is in our selection process. We're selecting entrepreneurs, and this was a growing process, and it's probably still growing, not probably, it is still growing after certain criteria. We don't care about any kind of education, whether you have a diploma from from Harvard, or you have never been at school. I mean, probably not never, because you need to read and write and so forth. But if you have no higher degree, if you're just a screw up in any school you were, I don't care. So education, and that's the realization we had, does not matter. So that's a pretty, disturbing statement for many people. And most of you don't know, but we have stopped reading CVs and people. When we hired people, I said, no CVs, please. I don't care. You can write there whatever you want. So what's the difference? I want your social media profiles. If you're not willing to share, we totally appreciate, but makes it simply impossible for us to have a meaningful conversation, because people that even have professional CV writers do their CV. I mean, how stupid is that? Then no matter what heritage, we have seen people coming from rich families and from poor families, from wild, kind of almost, far off families, let's say so, until to very conservative and very organized families. We have people seen from any country and from any society and from any style and from any religion, any color of the skin. I mean, anything. And the only thing that we realized that is basically common amongst all, there is no differentiation between one and the other. We cannot say these have the best opportunity or these will be the best entrepreneurs. And for us, this was difficult, because then we said, how do we find out? I mean, there must be something that one person, female or male, doesn't matter, is actually getting their company off the ground, and there are others who just don't. We had a startup with 6 PhDs, smart, really intelligent people, super agile, super engaged, still didn't make it. We had teams where 3 people coming from, very low-end background, not very, educated, had no money, but really want to do something, and they went up. So what's the difference? And so we started back and forth because we needed to know. First of all, we had a good start with the first 2 batches with 67 and 72% success rates. So they all got funded. So we thought initially it's our education, but then we realized it's not. So what is it? Number 1 is fearless risk takers. We saw this in every single successful entrepreneur. Fearless risk taking. People who take more risk than about 85% of anybody else. And as you see, this guy here is a sports guy. I mean, extreme sport. To do what he did or does is a risk, because if he falls, flat on his face, I mean, he can hurt himself almost, to getting disabled. But they do that for whatever reason. We don't know, but they do that. The same thing is if you're a climber, if you're a fire patrolman and going into huge fires, you risk your life. You risk it for others. They risk it for fun. Entrepreneurs risk it for their business, but we are huge risk takers. And that is the number 1 reason when companies fail or make it, because their founders team are risk takers and they go through hell if need to be, or they get shocked and they don't know and they better don't do anything, and so forth. So number 1, fearlessness. And we have not a single successful entrepreneur ever met in our life who was not a fearless person. So this is the first thing. If you're kind of wondering, is this me or not? Well, check out if you're a fearless person. And, if you would have asked me about 30 years ago or so, I would say, no, I'm probably not fearless. I may take some risk. But then I realized I'm a person who doesn't really know myself, at least back then.
So I wasn't sure if I'm a risk taker, but I talked to somebody, and I still remember this. This was actually at the Army. When I was, in Germany, we had to go 18 months to the Army, whether you like it or not. And he said, I mean, you're a fearless guy. And it's not me. No. And I said, yeah, you do some stuff that I'm not sure whether I would do it. And I was thinking, I said, yeah, but somebody has to. And he said, that's exactly what it is. Somebody has to, and it's you. But it wasn't me. So I thought, okay. So I realized, okay, I am actually a risk taker. And so this may the same be with you. So it isn't, risking your life every day. I mean, that would probably be more stupid than fearless. But if need to be, you need to be fearless. So this is the #1 trait. Now, can you learn it? I think no. Can you buy it? Certainly not. Can you train it? Probably not either. So it is something in you. And this is why the title at the end of the day became not just the phrase DNA of an entrepreneur. We believe it's actually part of the DNA. But we will tell you, if you don't have it, there is actually an interesting spin on the human DNA, which was just found out about 2 or 3 years ago. But if you're fearless and a risk taker, then you probably, not necessarily, but you're probably also independent as a person. Because independent people have to be fearless in order to be really independent. Independent means don't care about any obligation, any responsibilities. I'm not influenced by a lot of people. I mean, I may be inspired, but not influenced. And so I stand on my own feet and live my own life. Because I'm fearless and I'm a risk taker, I don't mind to do that. Because if somebody tells me you need to do this or that, well, okay, I can do that. But the risk is that they had the wrong opinion, or they had the wrong knowledge, or the wrong information. So I better decide whether I want to do that or not, and not because somebody else tell me. People told me when I was very young what's success, goes all the way back. My mother would love to have me being a banker, because back then in the 90s, 70s, that was a good thing. I'm very happy that I'm not, but not that I don't respect bankers, or that I'm not seeing the successes. There are people who make more money than me just by being a CEO of a huge bank. Successful or not, for the bank doesn't even matter. They still make 20 millions a year, but that wouldn't be me. And I realized, fortunately, that very early on, that being me is the most important thing in life. There is nothing more important than that. Maybe health, but other than that, me. And that means independent. And so one of the things we realized, people said, I have family, I'm just marrying. So, I mean, I cannot, work like you guys 14 hours a day. I have to go back to my wife and da-da-da-da-da. Well, yeah, then you're not independent and you have this influence. And that's good. I mean, it's not bad. But the only job out of millions of jobs, entrepreneur, is probably not ideal. Or even, more so if you have kids and you want to be this good father or good mother for the kids and have to be there and what have you, then this may be not the right thing. But it isn't that you're irresponsible if you don't. It only means that the dependence on other people and other groups, even though your own family, which is really the holy thing in life, makes you not the ideal entrepreneur. So Marita and I, many of you know, we have 4 kids, and we were terrible parents. And we know, that is a challenge, and we never know how will it fire back one day. And we had always a little bit hard feelings, always, constantly. But we still did it because I think we couldn't even do otherwise. I mean, it's this urge. It's like like an illness almost. And fortunately enough, when our kids get older, so they're all grown up, actually also successful in their lives. And we asked them one time when we were all together, this was more an apology than an ask. And they said, one said, Dad, it's all good. I mean, we learned so much about, you know, business and how to do a business, not only from a business perspective, but from the human perspective. I mean, you hired thousands of people. You were always good to your team. You fired people, but actually this is probably good for that person as well, because you never fired somebody just because, and so forth. And so we realized it's good. But the independence of us doing what we did was necessary in order to make it happen. So then there is another thing, when Marita and I talked about what else, so we realized, okay, independence is an important thing, and fearlessness. And Marita said curious. I think every entrepreneur who's really up to par is a curious person. I looked at her and said, curious? What does that have to do with entrepreneurship? And she said, yeah, because when you're curious, you'll be almost always open-minded. And when you're curious, you'll find out all kinds of things. And she told me, you know, how she sort of sees me in this situation. I thought, oh, wow, I'm curious, yeah. And when we looked through curious more and more, we thought, yeah, every single one who made it is a curious person. They want to know things, I mean, put it upside down and understands, not necessarily build it or make it or, you know, rebuild it, but understanding what the mechanism is. And every of these mechanisms and every moment of curiosity, which I learned basically years and years and years later, just 3 years ago, 4 years ago, is the most important food for thought. Every experience you have goes into your brain as a resource for innovation. And we will talk about this in, I think, three knowledge transfer meetings from now. But curiosity is a huge, widely important trait for entrepreneurs. And if you're fearless and independent, like this guy here, you just decide, okay, I'm gonna go in this cave and I'm gone for 4 weeks and see you later. If you are fearless or fearful and not so independent, curiosity shrinks. Fearlessness and independence actually grows it. And so then there is another aspect that was, I think it was initially the first one was creativity. And now I learned over the past years that humans are not creative at all, but we are compositive, meaning all our ideas are compositions of experiences. So creativity and the way we process it is actually a composition, like the music world already says. They don't say this is a creative musician, it's a composer, composing tones so well that it sounds like you get tears in your eyes sometimes, right? So these are people with very lively imaginations, but here's already again, you know, sort of a connection to the other ones, curiosity. If somebody's not curious, is very rarely creative. Maybe still, I mean, like in arts, it could be, but definitely not creative enough for an entrepreneur because you don't have enough experiences to navigate your company. I mean, day in and day out, you know, within a split second, you have to go there. You make decisions every single day. And so that's a key. And fearlessness, to make a decision and to be creative beyond your neighbors saying, oh, what is this a crappy thing? I mean, you were so stupid. I mean, come on, be serious, be a man, be a woman, do this, do that. No, but if you're creative, you have to stand up above all these kind of influence from the outside. So with these 4, we realized being determined is yet another trait. And you see already the pattern, and we said initially there is no pattern. The pattern is all these things: fearlessness, independence, curiosity, creativity, and determination. That is not something you can learn. I mean, your parents can tell you day in and day out, be determined. And you shrug and say, oh, yeah, I'm very determined. Ooh, I'm probably determined enough to kill myself. So that is something you can probably not learn. But if you have the trait or the talent, then that can be developed. If you're not necessarily fearful, but also not really fearless, but you realize, okay, I can do so much, well, I should do more, then you can develop your talent, the talent of being fearless. So determined means simply making stuff happen no matter what. And you rather die than giving up. That is a typical characteristic of a good entrepreneur. Never give up. If I wouldn't have not enough determination, I would have probably screwed up my first company after 6 months and gave up. Even the second company, there was a situation, 2 major ones, where I was close to give up, but obviously didn't. And it's probably my second $1 billion company if they continue that way. And the third one as well. And so determination is also never give up. Determined to make this work. And there is no option. There is no even idea of failure. So and then the next one is an interesting one. It's intelligent. And so I have to say real quick, intelligent for many people is sort of something very hard to grab. Oh, this is an intelligent person. I want to be like this, but I never am. Don't forget that intelligence is not something you get, you can buy again, you can train or so. It's a trait to a certain degree, but it's actually a very simple trait. It's the ability to observe, abstract, and make decisions quickly. So if you are a bad observer, like I see this but don't want to even look in, and because you feel, no, this is not what you should do, because your parents or the society told you so. And for many people, curiosity is actually also very, very negatively, sticked on. The same as the ability to abstract. I mean, you see something, you simplify it and say, okay, that's basically that. And if you do this when you're very young, people say, you're so superficial, you're an idiot. Well, no, you're not an idiot, and definitely not superficial. You have an ability that they don't have to abstract a situation and getting from very complicated to very simple. That is a powerful feature of you if you have it. And the next one, equally, you make fast decisions. It's the same. People say, "Ma, you need to think about it." No, everything is clear for me. No. I mean, let's really think about it. Let's take everything inside out. But in your brain, it's already there. So this can be basically distracted as far as and detrained or detalented until you give up. And intelligent, unfortunately, is something that most people in young age get too much influence from the outside to stop all these things that actually make up your intelligence. And if you go back 300,000 years, everybody who survived was intelligent because they made an instant decision. If they didn't, they would die. They would be run over by an elephant or by a mammoth. They would fall into a crack. They would starve hunger, and so forth and so forth. Now, the last 5 million years, in particular the last 300,000 years, and very much the last 12,000 years, made all of us relatively intelligent, with the exception of those who actually were pushed down and down and down. And so there is one aspect where inheritance, meaning parents, have a huge role, and some teachers who are not well educated, and unfortunately we have a lot of them, that you get actually crippled, mentally crippled. But this is just one trait where this may actually apply very intensely, but still is a trait. It's not something that you have learned or not learned. And if you realize that, okay, I actually have that, but I forgot about it, or I was actually pushed down, well, then you re-enable your talent. This is something you can do too. Okay, so we have now 6 of 10 key traits, key attributes, sort of key talents for an entrepreneur. And if you're not intelligent, meaning you don't observe fast enough and make decisions, well, that would be a problem because you have to make decisions probably every day. I remember some of my investors, and I was already 36 or something, said you have to make decisions every day. And I thought, yeah, I mean, I don't make a lot of the decisions, but certainly not every day. I said, I'm sure you do. And so I observed myself and said, okay, how many decisions will I do today? And if I make one, then I make a dash on my list. Literally every day, there was something to decide. I mean, not major decisions like do I sell the company or not, or hire the person or not, but tiny little ones all the way up to to actually big ones. And you need to make it fast. And if you're a good observer, a good listener, and can abstract the situation and then make a decision, that is a good entrepreneur. Okay, oops, come on. So the next one is connectedness, or being connected. Most top entrepreneurs are very well connected. And now you may ask, so yeah, but I'm not, so am I a bad entrepreneur? No. Being connected is not necessarily something you learn, but you need to be somebody who is able and open to connect. And then what is to learn is build your own personal network. That is something you can learn, but only if you are a connected mind, so to speak. If you hesitate to talk to others, not your thing. And if you now go back the list, I'm not intelligent enough, I'm not determined enough, I'm not very creative, I'm not very curious, I'm actually not even independent, and I'm a little bit fearful. Well, when you end up here at connected, and your connectedness talent, and you have all this, you'll probably be also, now at this stage, you're a connected person. And as we see it at the end, if you're not, because you're very introverted, but you're a genius, well, then it's probably not the CEO position the right thing for you, but maybe the CTO position, or some specialist position. And at one point, the generalist and the specialist are 90-degree apart. So if you're not connected, that doesn't mean you're not a good entrepreneur. It only means that you need to have a co-founder partner in your company who has that trait. And that would be very important. And here, basically from here on now, 7, 8, 9, 10, you will notice that the co-founder in your company is not just an interesting thing and somebody stupid investors want, and therefore you have to have it. No, it is something you have to have in order to be successful with your company. So maintain the connections. As soon as you have it, maintain it. And this is not, if it's not your nature, don't cripple yourself, because this would only be painful. You would enslave yourself for something that is not in your trade mechanism. But if the rest is, then, and this is not, then by now, okay, I need to have a co-founder who is a connector, who just has this, oh, hello, and yeah, oh, yeah, oh, wait a second, you know what I'm saying, I'll call you back, I'm yeah, this is good. Now, the horizontal people don't like the vertical, and vice versa. So if you're a technology founder and you see these guys, juggling, you think, I mean, they're not working, they're just talking all day long. But guess what? That's what they have to do in order to run the business right. So what should they work otherwise? Still also code? That would be pretty stupid, even if they could. No, somebody need to be in the market, because if you're not there, you cannot win any business. So after connected, this is a very sort of similar yet different aspect. I know lots of people who are very connected, but still not very communicative. And so I realized about a year ago too, when we started with this list, that one or the other are different traits. Somebody can be not connected actually, but very good in communication. Like this guy, he loves to possibly do video calls, but he doesn't really like to talk to people every day. So, and the other guy may be, you know, this super connector, weaving connections every day. It just doesn't feel right to communicate all this. It's like, oh, hey, Joe, and blah, 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 and and get it done. So these are two different things, even though very well well connected with each other. And also here, if this is not your trade where you say, yeah, I love this, this is cool, well, then you have to have a co-founder who loves that and finds it cool. Yeah. And so you see from this list, fearless, independent, curious, creative, determined, intelligent. That is a base trait of a good founder, co-founder, whatever position. That is the basis. But then there are a few traits that are very necessary, but you can offset this through your co-founders. So in the last, almost last thing is confidence. And confidence, interesting enough, comes from the previous attributes, but there are people who are still not confident. And so we were looking at why is somebody who is fearless, independent, curious, creative, determined, intelligent, and communicative, and connected, still not confident? I don't know. But I realized it also cannot be trained. People are, maybe it's the nervous system that makes them nervous, you know, literally, to not being confident. And if you're not confident, but still a smart ass, excuse my language, cool. But you need, again, this co-founder. So, and finally is involving. And that was actually something that also came relatively late to that list, because I realized that this is something that most entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs have or can do, but I didn't see it as a trait. It took me actually to understand and seeing alpha animals in the animal kingdom. They're not just a big, you know, heavy power, super boom. No, they're involving. They keep their folks together. They lead them somewhere. They do some things that the rest really obeys to their power as an alpha. It's not just the muscle, but it's also the way they act. Every single alpha has not just muscle, but has an involving trait, because this is the only way to keep actually the herd together. And so I thought, okay, so that must be then a trait. And so involving is this attitude and imagination and, you know, a little bit of the confidence again to involve others. I like this picture in particular because this guy on the very left here probably talks something. I think he doesn't tell a joke or so, but everybody is eager to hear the story. So what are we gonna do? How do you see, what was this experience you had? How can we use that? I mean, it's this interest of somebody who can share without being necessarily directive and say, hey guys, you know, don't ask questions. This is what we're gonna do. That is not involving, this is directing. That top leaders are involving, making others understand what it is and share their background of their ideas, not just the idea itself. And so if we put this all together, fearless, independent, curious, creative or compositive, determined, and intelligent. These are the 6 traits every entrepreneur has to have. Otherwise, it would be difficult, I have to tell you, because I have seen not a single entrepreneur who made it even somewhat successful who didn't have them all. And it is not what are the top 3 or the top 1. This question alone is not an entrepreneur's-like question, because we're not dealing with simplicity. We're dealing with something that drives a business with maybe hundreds or thousands of employees and tens of thousands of customers in a whole ecosystem. So it is it is something that is beyond, oh, you have to have this one thing and then everything is good. So the other traits, connectedness, communicative, confident, and evolving, that is not necessarily every founder's necessity, but the team necessity. So these 10 traits, if we find them in a company, we're very, very confident that this company will take it all the way to the top. And all they need then is what we all need, including myself. And I mean, the World Innovations Forum and the Current Company Society 3 is my fifth, actually World Innovations Forum, my sixth engagement, but I have advisory board members and I need these guys. I mean, they're very, very helpful for me. I can't do all this on my own. I mean, I could do it, but I'd probably not be successful. And so look for this team that has all the traits and only the combination of different traits, horizontal and vertical thinking, technology versus business, finance versus, you know, having a lot of fun. All this is necessary. And as the old saying goes, it takes teamwork to make a dream work. And the dream needs a team. Okay, so as you can see, co-founders can offset 40% of missing traits. That's pretty cool, which means you don't have to have them all. But if you're a solopreneur, well, you know now that you will have somebody else in your team in order to survive. And if your co-founder have, you know, the complementary traits, then it's good. If they're the same like you, and this is one of the problems people have, is that they look for very like-minded and even similar people, and that is unfortunately not good. This is monoculture, and monoculture in whole nature is not a good thing. So my teams, my co-founders were basically never friends. I mean, today we are, but in the beginning, we respected us. We did all kinds of similar things from an industry point of view, but one was very different, the other were very different than I was. And so that is a good thing. And if they're all the same, that would be actually really a pity. So I think we have a couple of questions that I go right after. I have 2 more slides to share with you. First of all, again, thanks for joining and thanks for keeping together, even in days where we would love to have actually meeting you personally. But so we all moved to digital, and that's an interesting story in itself. So the next knowledge transfer is about idea seekers. It's people who are looking for ideas, and it's people who want to make sure that their idea is actually a good idea, and ways to find out and ways to get to ideas. And also here I have a couple of very interesting stories. One is probably the most interesting one is from a friend of mine who actually was idea seeking as his company were about to fail and they wanted to have a new idea. And another one who had actually failed and wanted a new idea because they didn't want to go back to employment. So that's May 4th, so our second knowledge transfer session. And then 3, 4, and 5 in June, July, and August. One is idea validation, how to find out whether your idea is really, really a killer idea. And you will need to find out because a killer idea makes a killer valuation, and not so sure idea makes a not so good valuation of the company. And then in July, we talk about innovative thinking, sort of my favorite, since I was the last 4 years really working hard on this topic, because I always got the question, okay, how do you come up with these innovative company ideas? And I always say the same thing, I don't know. So I thought, okay, I need to break this now. And I think we did. And then in August, we have deep innovation design. That is actually the methodology that we came up with, which is pretty cool, I believe. And I'm astounded myself because it is something that I did for years without knowing. And now understanding how our machine up here works to a degree where you say, wow, I mean, you will never understand 86 billion neurons between 4 and 40 trillion synapses. And, you know, you will not understand. And this is the funny thing about entrepreneurship. We don't need to. I mean, you know, here is a cell phone. Oops. My camera is on. Nobody sees me. Okay. So my cell phone has about 10, I believe 5 or 10 billion transistors, CPO. I have no clue what these transistors all do, and I don't need to. I need to know how to call. I need to know how to look up my calendar. I need to look I need to know how to get into Twitter and to Facebook and LinkedIn and a couple other things. I don't need to know how the chip works. But what's good for me to know is that the chip works the same function every time. So if I calculate 4 plus 4 million divided by 7 billion and so forth, that the result is okay. And I need to know how to enter the code. And so this is what's about deep innovation design. And all these programs for the rest of the year and even starting next year is always the first Monday in the month. So now what's on the horizon? And since I have you here, I want to share with you real quick what we're up to otherwise. First of all, there's a couple events, and the easiest way for you to actually keep track on everything we do, if you join the community, wiforum.org/register, it's free, at least for now, and it will be free for most of you basically forever. At least there is a free account forever, let's say so. And so there is the demo day 8 on Wednesday this week, in 2 days from now. You can go online and see where it is. As an entrepreneur, we decided we make it open so that you can learn, basically. You can learn how it works, you can learn about the questions, you can learn about the startups that graduated from our accelerator and what the next step is. You can also learn about our global innovation capital network and stuff like that. Then on April 21, we have World Innovations Day. That's a day where we simply want to celebrate smart cookies. We want to celebrate innovative minds and not the big old guys. I mean, you know, they're celebrated basically every day by virtue of being in Webster and in other documentaries. No, we want to celebrate cool young entrepreneurs. And so I want to have everybody joining one way or the other to share who is cool and use the V-Day hashtag, and you see all this on our website to do so. We also have a entrepreneurs conference call the same day. Now our calendar unfortunately was so packed that we couldn't do otherwise, but you'll get an invitation probably in the next days or so. Then there's our Deep Innovation Design webinar on April 23rd. Now this is, I believe, not yet on the World Innovations Forum website because this is conducted by Society 3, but this gives you a very good insight about how our innovation design model, the Deep Innovation Design model, works and why we believe and why we could actually already prove that innovation can be done by purpose. If you need an innovation for something now, you can start innovating. And it's not about, oh, I need to sit down and meditate and, oh, gee, you know, give me this idea. No, our brain has a very, very logical function to process also ideas. And once we found out, we can actually now look for innovation. Then there's on May 4th is the next knowledge transfer series. Deep Innovation Design Crash Course is on May 11. So we have a couple pricing. So we have the classic pricing. We have now one for our initiative, Innovate Fighting Pandemics. And we have an additional discount for emerging countries. So check it out and see if you will join. But I recommend first do the Deep Innovation Design webinar on April 23, so that you know what's coming, because this is not a walk in the park. You have to want to learn to think innovative, and you want to have to, get your mind open. And there are ways to do that. I mean, this is all no magic. I always say I'm probably far from being an intelligent or one of the most intelligent people in the world or something like that. But I observe things and figure it out. And so that is simply what we want to pass on. Okay, with that said, first of all, again, thank you very much. And then I have probably a few questions to answer. And I believe Marita is helping me with that.
Yeah, thanks, Axel. Yeah, I got great questions from our audience. So you covered already the startup part of the questions, but I got the question from a government attendee. He said he's in charge of startup development in his home country, and how can a government participate in the World Innovations Forum idea?
Yeah. So, hey, cool question. And obviously there is a big yes, we want to work with you. We do already in 2 countries. And the way we typically do that is, number one, because we're not this classic NGO type who says, oh, here's our program and this is how it works. We want to find out what you need, what you want, what kind of inspiration maybe even, and then we work on concepts that we involve always, and this is the only quote unquote rule we have, we involve local people. We don't want to bring our resources in to do something. We wholeheartedly believe this is not working that way. We will obviously have resources to work with you and maybe as the trainer function with others, but we exist in this function by working with local people that we even help find and train and work with them to improve basically the entrepreneurship level and also innovation level.
Thanks.
But send me an email, axel@wiforum.org, and more than happy to respond immediately.
Another question also related to organization is, are there any training opportunities for facilitators like co-working incubator or existing accelerator in the countries like Ghana, Kenya, and so on?
Yain. Yes and no. So what we did in the past, and at least in Southeast Asia, we're working with co-working spaces. It just happened to be sort of a natural fit. And within these co-working spaces, we find here and there people who want to train our programs or provide the training, or we find other organizations or foundations actually who want to become a partner and do that. So we're working or beginning to work in Vietnam with I think it's called Vietnam Entrepreneurs Foundation. We have a collaboration in Seoul with the Seoul Startup Hub. We have a collaboration with the Vietnam Startup Hub, the Innovation Hub. And so, yeah, we're doing this almost case by case. And again, for the same reason, you need to seamlessly be woven into your culture and into your country. And we're flexible enough to adapt. So there is no program saying this is how it should work. But obviously we have the knowledge and the whole train the trainer and all the material we have. That is the only thing where we have quote unquote a program. Yeah.
Oh, and another question comes from Manisha Bandari. Is it possible for anyone who does not is in a job being part of the WIForum?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, we are really grateful for everybody joining who has an interest in innovation and either being an entrepreneur or we're helping entrepreneurs from their experience, or helping the whole organization, may it be volunteering for spreading the word and creating awareness. And so there's so much to do. And probably also it would be important for us to understand what your own goal is. I mean, oftentimes a nonprofit organization is seen as, okay, I need to do certain things that I fit. I don't believe in fitting, but this has to be to do with me being an entrepreneur. I mean, entrepreneurs are rule breakers, and so when you break a rule, then you build a new one. And it's the same on the collaboration. When you say, you know, I'm right now out of job, I want to do this and that in the future, and so what would be a good idea for me? Where can I help? Then we would simply figure that out. Yeah, but definitely come.
Thanks. I think we covered so far all of the questions. As Axel said, if you have any additional questions coming up after we conclude now this WIForum event, feel free to reach out to us via email at wiforum.com, first name always, or also join our communities on Facebook, the WIForum community. All these communities are helping we grow together, and we can together really accelerating innovation in every country. Looking forward to having you with our next webinar in this series. The topic, as Axel said, is Idea Seeker. And with that, I like to thank from my side and give it back to Axel.
Okay, well, thank you very much, everybody. Also, again, apologize for the super short notice, but the only thing that I would say that is actually intriguing is to see how we could all together mobilize 100 people almost literally overnight. And when we have our big event where we expect roughly 2,000 people, we need really, 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 really everybody to help us. So if you can help, you know, share the event, the World Innovations Forum Digital 2020 conference, that is June 23 to 25. URL is already existing. I believe the registration is either up, I actually haven't checked, I'm sorry, or will be up tomorrow, because I know it exists already. Then people could register, and the earlier we can start, the better we can go. But we have cool speakers. We have also there people from the government who speak about their stories in their country and so forth. So it will be a very cool 3-day all digital event, meaning it's all online, like the first we did in 2018. But this time actually brute force, because this time nobody has a big event. So we're actually lucky to do this probably smoothly in June this year. Thank you. With that, wish you all a good week. Thanks again. Stay safe. Obviously, that's the new term. And look forward to see you again in one of these events. And reach out to us anytime if you have questions, really anytime. The only thing we do is trying to be helpful. Okay? Thank you. Ciao, ciao. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. With that, I will close our today's webinar. Bye.